Blackmail. In his dream, there was nobody on the street. But this didn't strike PC Richard Chase as odd. The street lights were on. He looked at his wristwatch, and it was blank. There was just a white light all over the surface of the watch. No hands, no numbers, nothing. It felt good to be a cop. He looked down at his chest, and his badge was there. It felt good on his chest. He felt a pulse between his legs. His cock was half full of blood. It felt good to be a cop. There was an itch on his chest where his badge was. He scratched it without looking down. It persisted. He looked down again, and there was a spider coming out of his badge. He slammed on the brakes, jumped out of the car, and pulled the badge off his chest. He threw it to the ground, and the spider ran away. A spider came out of my badge, he thought. A spider just came out of my badge. Before he could think about that any further, the silence hit him. There wasn't a sound in the city. The whole of Parkdale was quiet. There was no traffic noise, no people noise, no electrical noise. It was so quiet he could hear his breathing, which was heavy and deep because of the adrenaline jolt the spider had caused him. Why was it so quiet? The radio in the car was working. He heard his division's sergeant on the radio. He heard other officers on the radio. But where were they? He had to call somebody. Something had happened to all the energy in Parkdale. He got out of the cruiser and walked around. The whole community had disappeared. He walked back to the car and tried to open the door. It was locked. I'm locked out of my cruiser, he thought. Another embarrassment as a cop. He had his portable radio, the one attached to his belt, but that was a last resort. There was no way he was going to call the division and ask for a patrol car to come by with another set of keys to his cruiser. He started to walk down the quiet and empty street. It was like being a beat cop. He had done that for a couple of years. It felt good to be a cop. His penis started to get hard again. What a strange and wonderful place, he thought. He knew of a donut shop just up the street, so he thought that he would walk there and get a coffee and call a tow truck from the payphone. The tow truck drivers all carried the door unlock tools that were illegal for citizens to possess. A tow truck driver would be able to open his cruiser, and he'd be able to cruise again. He rounded the corner and saw the donut shop. It was empty, but the lights were on, and as he got closer, he could see coffee on the burner and slight wisps of steam coming from the tops of the two coffee pots. He pulled on the door. It was locked. There was no back in 5 minutes sign. He sat down on the curb in front of the donut shop door. He hoped that the proprietor would come out of the bathroom, that the proprietor would know what was going on. Why there was nobody on the streets, no traffic, nothing human. 3 people came into view. They came out from under a steel railway bridge and walked towards the donut shop. As they got closer, he noticed that they were black, male, and between 18 and 25. A high crime demographic. He stood up. They approached brazenly. "What are you doing, cop?" one of them said from across the small, empty donut shop parking lot. "What?" "I asked the questions here," the same black male said. Chase reached for the handset to his belt radio. "Officer in need of assistance, corner of Queen and Dufferin." "Situation?" a voice said back on the radio. "I've got 3 black males coming at me," the dispatcher repeated. 3 black males? Chase responded. "Yes, 3 black males." "Fuck you, cracker," another of the black males said, and they were almost on top of him. He pulled his revolver, unlatched the safety, and squeezed the trigger without any warning or any order to the 3 black males. There was no boom, no recoil, nothing. There were no bullets in his gun. His heart started to beat crazy fast. His mind raced. He turned and started to run. He could hear their footsteps behind him. He could hear their laugh. He looked down beside him, at the cracked sidewalk, rushing past at his full sprint, and he saw his badge, with 8 hairy legs on it, running beside him, pacing him. Dr. Bluett made notes on the dream. Dick Chase was telling the same dream over and over again. Well, in fairness, she wrote, the details were not a 1-to-1 correlation. The expression of fear, guilt, and racial paranoia were significantly different in each of the dreams, and it wasn't her place to tell him that he was probably intimidated by the black man's penis size, because sex is where most violence comes from. But the thing about these dreams, though, the single thing that repeated itself was the spider. And here's where she earned her bread. She had to nail this down. He had come to her with a general impotence of character, a cop that was assaulted on the streets of Parkdale, and then further reduced by the theft of his badge and bullets. But he had not come with bad dreams. She wanted to believe that the spider was the manifestation of his fear of change, his fear of molting, because the spider he described had fur on its legs. And spiders like that molt. And what is molting, she thought, but the process of rebirth, redefinition, the death and resurrection of the psyche, Lazarus. But pragmatism and malpractice fears made her write psychotic side effect in her Zolfax journal. Cobb never went to medical school. However, he noted the date on the session notes and the audio tape case. It was the first session since Cobb gave Fillmore the bag. Cobb listened to the audio tape from the session. "It's this spider that jumps out at me, Dick." "Why the spider?" "Well, let me try to explain it like this. A lot of the time, things used in dreams just represent something, but they don't represent what they are literally. Do you understand what I mean by literal, Dick?" "I think so." "Let me try to explain. We ask ourselves, what is it that we know about spiders? And this spider, the one in your dreams, Dick, this is a spider that molts. Do you know what molting is, Dick?" "I think so." "Well, let me try to explain. Molting is a process of change. Snakes molt too." "Oh, right," Chase said. "That's it. Now you're getting it. They shed their skin." "That's right, Dick. And do you know what that represents?" "I'm shedding my skin?" "Well, yes and no, Dick. That's where the interpretation comes in. And this is really where you want to narrow your margin of error. And that's why it's always best to bounce these things off a professional, Dick. You want to really nail down what this means so that you can harvest the energies of your mind again, so that you can be released from the loss of energy this inner tension is taking from. Do you understand, Dick?" "I think so." "Let me try to explain, Dick. You're changing on the inside. It's a natural process. The dreams are scary because we're all afraid of change." "That's it?" "Pretty much, Dick. Pretty much. What we really have to get at is what the fear is that is holding you back, Dick. That's where the therapy is really going to come into play, Dick. We have to weed the garden, because when the weeds get too thick, the flowers can't grow. And the weeds of this fear are growing in you, Dick. And that's why the dreams are so real to you, Dick." "I sure hope you're right, Dr. Bluett, because I have to say there are some nights I wake up and I'm sure there's a curse on me." "Oh, my goodness, Dick. That's preposterous. I can assure you of that." They concluded their session on that point. Dr. Bluett had a treatment section to her session notes, and P.C. Richard Chase's treatment was a moving target. Cobb enjoyed studying the white man's medicine. The only thing Dr. Bluett sold was her time. There was never any questions about the billing from the province. She had other responsibilities as well. The province invested authority in her. She was allowed to access the public budget. P.C. Richard Chase had been off work for months. She had to write an assessment for the continuance of his paid leave. She was very sympathetic to his situation. All she had to do was put herself in his position. He had been rendered unconscious in the service and protection of the city. The physical assault was its own trauma. A concussion is a serious injury. Permanent damage can ensue. The internal damage was far worse. P.C. Richard Chase had lost his nerve, which, to Dr. Irene Bluett, was tantamount to losing faith. The young man's faith in the world and his belief in the power of right and good had been taken. She declared him unfit for duty by his own assessment, and not yet ready to resume the dangers and responsibilities of his profession by her own assessment, which, she wrote for the record, was determined by the patient's state of mind. She had made up her mind. She was going to give this young man his faith back. She was going to heal him. Cobb heard footsteps outside the office. He put the session material back where he found it as quickly as he could. He turned off his flashlight and went out the window and onto the metal steps of the fire escape on the back side of the 4-story building, and he disappeared into the night. End of chapter.